Okay, we are live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment here, gang. And we're going to get things cooking. Hope everybody's had a great weekend. We're here to talk some Broncos. Looking forward to it. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen, and with me, as always, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, the Denver Broncos, according to Mike Kliss, this has a lot of fans kind of wringing their hands because they don't necessarily, they just read the headline and they don't then follow it through to the logical conclusion. But Mike Kliss says Jarrett Stidham has the edge as being the Broncos QB1 for 2024, dot, 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 with a drafted rookie behind him. Da, 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 da. So that has kind of been making the waves this weekend. How do you help it make sense to our great listeners?
Well, it makes plenty of sense. And I mean, there's a lot of people in Broncos country, myself included, that have been shouting that from the rooftops for weeks, going on months now. If y'all haven't listened to me on here, listen to Mike Kliss, who's more plugged in, more in the know, and he's giving you the breadcrumbs and the trail leading to a rookie at 12 or at some point on day one. Chad, it was very transparent and plain to see that the more the Broncos bypass quarterbacks, either by trade or by signing, that they were going to hedge their money and put all their eggs in the draft basket. And that's the way to go. You already have your placeholder. You already have your bridge in Jarrett Stidham. Focus on the rookie.
Exactly. Let me just read this for everybody real fast. It's a short scratch and sniff. Mike Kliss, 9 News, quote, the Broncos seem to be leaning toward giving Stidham the edge, pardon me, as the number one quarterback and also using their 12th pick in the draft to take quarterback for the future. So, Zach, this all dovetails right back to the original plan in the first place. Let's see what Rock Chalk is thinking about on this subject, saying, so far the Broncos are wise to stay out of the scab QB market. Only a few left available to be wary of. Hoping they stick with Stidham, who's already on the roster and very capable of being a bridge to a rookie. Broncos for life, MHH for life. Thank you, Rock Chalk. And that's really what this is you need someone who's competent enough to kind of keep the ship afloat, keep you, competitively, a competitive threat, we'll say. I don't know how competitive the Broncos are going to be this year, but keep things are moving while for a couple games. I mean, maybe as long, Zach, as half a season. You don't necessarily, in my opinion, want especially a first-round drafted quarterback anyway, languishing any longer than that. If your plan is he's our future, like you need to get him in there sooner than later. But it's only going to be maybe, Zach, a few games, maybe a quarter of a season. And then the idea is get that rookie on the field.
Yeah, and there should be no set timetable. When the rookie feels like he's ready to go in, or the Broncos, more importantly, feel like he's ready to play, then he'll play. I've heard the criticisms, though, that the Broncos should sign Sam Darnold or somebody with more experience because the rookie can learn more from him than Jarrett Stidham. I'm of the mind that the rookie is going to learn the most and best by playing, by getting on the field, taking reps, good and bad, learning experiences, good and bad. That's how he's going to grow, especially, Chad, in a Sean Payton system that's very hands-on, and you kind of have to work with it to understand it. So Jarrett Stidham is fine for who he is and what he is at the moment.
I could not agree more. And I think a good reminder of why it's advisable to get that player, first round drafted quarterback, on the field sooner than later was the failed Paxton Lynch pick, right? What was he, number 26 overall, something like that, in 2016. That was a unique situation for the Broncos, Zach, because it was the coaching staff and the front office were not unified on their view of that particular player. And so John Elway, I think he was hoping Kubiak would be warmed up and on board with him getting Lynch on the field sooner than later. But either he really didn't like the Lynch pick, didn't like Lynch the player, Zach, or something about his history as a long-suffering number 2 quarterback, a clip holder, a backup, made him love Trevor Siemian. And we all know how that turned out. But I think by and large, including Elway, as a player going back to 83, the sooner they play, the better. You got to get them acclimated to the speed of the game, to the violence of the game, to all the machinations, all the little fine nuances and details sooner than later, and get them through that learning curve. I think it accelerates the learning curve rather than prolonging it.
And it also, you find out sooner rather than later whether the guy has it or not, because you'll know early on whether
Yep.
this guy could be something. We saw it with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud this past season. We all saw it with Paxton Lynch. We knew relatively early this guy was going to be the capital B bust. We'll know early on what this next quarterback will look like in a Sean Payton system. But the earlier, I'm with you, Chad, the earlier he plays, I think the better overall the team will be.
Um, just a few quick hellos here. I want to say hi to the early birds that jumped in, getting the convo going. William, David Youngkin in the house. We got the Ostendorf in the house. What's up, big dog? Mike Woodward's jumping in early. Yeah, we were running a little bit late tonight. Sundays, that's just kind of the way it goes. BK, what's up? Good to see you, big dog. String guy. Uh, wait, if you could see this new guitar I got, String guy, you'd be going ape, dude. Because I know you're a PRS guy, if I'm not mistaken. I'll show it to you one of these days. But let's grab this from String Guy. If you're going to trade Patrick Surtain this time, while his value, this is the time while his value is high. Once you sign him to a mega contract, he'll be much harder to trade. The real question should be, can Denver afford him in 2024? Zach, what are your thoughts for the String Guy?
I understand the argument, and I think there's some buyer's remorse of not trading someone like Jerry Jeudy or Justin Simmons sooner because you could have got more for them. But you don't have to move PS2 unless you're trading up into the top 3. If you want to move up to 8, for example, I think you can do that, Chad, without surrendering PS2. It's going to cost you a lot. It's going to cost you a bounty, but it's not going to cost you PS2. So that's why I think the argument for holding on to him, it makes sense, because whether the Broncos allow a quarterback to fall to them, maybe someone like Bo Nix now with the Vikings hot on McCarthy's trail, or if they move up a few spots for McCarthy or for somebody else, you'll be able to keep PS2. Have your cake and eat it as well.
Yeah, I would say Atlanta would be a prime potential partner for such a trade up. But we'll see. String guy, thank you guys. Lots more to get to tonight. But first, hey, we got to make sure that your nutrition is on point, because the older I get, the more seriously I have come to take care of my health, my nutrition, and especially like an over reliance on caffeine. And I'll admit it, that's how I was for a long, long time, drinking coffee too late into the day, energy shots, Red Bulls in the evening when it's time to podcast, or I got to get that article cranked out. And it's short term without any uh, long-term benefits, and then you get the crash. But with AG1, you're taking care of multiple things. You get that energy boost, you get the nutrition, you get the gut health thing. So guys, make sure, and plus I guess I'm also missing out on the multivitamin aspect of it. You can skip taking the horse pills, right, that you're like trying to choke them down, and instead enjoy that delicious smoothie from AG1. Zach.
I promise you guys, AG1 is the supplement I trust to support my whole body health and help me feel my best. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/huddle. That's drinkag1.com/huddle. Check it out.
Love partnering with these guys, AG1, because it is definitely a product I use and my family uses. My son loves it, and we've been using it for a long time. So that was a perfect opportunity to align. We dropped the link too in the chat, and it'll also be in the description of this episode. So FYI on that. Okay, let's jump back into the chat here. By the way, Zach, the Denver Broncos over the weekend, we were wondering, hey, Howie, what's up, dude? Good to see you, big dog. Appreciate the stars. Hope you're doing well, my friend. The support means a lot. You know this. Over the weekend, Zach, the Broncos signed another player. In case you guys missed it, Cody Barton, young but veteran linebacker, former Seattle Seahawks third-round pick, played in Washington last season, tackling machine. We got a chance, Zach, to talk to him at the Combine back in 2019. He's a Utah native, so he's used to playing at altitude, all that stuff. University of Utah alum. What was your reaction to the Broncos giving him, I think it was a 1-year deal worth up to, $3.5 million?
It's a little more than he got, but it reminds me of the Alex Singleton pickup, a linebacker that few people heard about that came out of nowhere to lead the Broncos in stops on an annual basis. And I like it. I guess he's going to fill in for Josie Jewell as a piecemeal type of solution. And that's how the Broncos are kind of construct their roster, kind of like replacing Simmons with Brandon Jones. I like the move. I can't really hate it, though. I do hope still, Chad, the Broncos address inside linebacker in the draft and get someone that can blossom into the next, hopefully, Pro Bowl off-ball backer in Denver of the future.
Yeah, he was clearly signed as a short-term Band-Aid. But I think there's also, Zach, short-term Band-Aid with the possibility of it being more depending on how things shake out in 2024. But, he had his first 3 years in Seattle as a third-round pick. He was playing behind some pretty good linebackers. I mean, Bobby Wagner. I'm trying to remember what was his partner, Bobby Wagner's partner on the Legion of Boom. I'm forgetting his name. It'll come to me, but I can't remember if he was still playing. But either way, you had Wagner, you had Griffin. You had some guys in front. What's up, Ronnie? Thank you for the stars, big dog. I can't believe I can't think of this dude's name. He's like
KJ Wright.
Thank you, KJ.
There
Wright.
we go. BK.
I can't remember
nice
when did KJ leave. Let me see. KJ Wright. Hold on one second. This is just for my own satisfaction here. KJ Wright. So his last year as a Seahawk was 2020. Yeah, so the first 2 years Cody Barton was in Seattle, they still had their, Legion of Boom linebacker duo. KJ Wright was there. And then after KJ left, he still did Cody Barton kind of play more of a reserve role. 2022, though, is when he got his shot to start, appearing in all 17 games, Zach, but starting 11. And he totaled 136 tackles, Zach, in 11 games. He had a couple of sacks, he had a couple of picks as well. Like, he was a playmaker, but even still, maybe something about his 1-year wonder aspect of that production. He wasn't able to get more than a 1-year deal and about $3 million on the open market. But Washington, he had a little bit of an injury, so he ended up only starting 13 games, but he still produced 121 tackles. So he's coming off, Zach, back-to-back 100 tackle seasons. I'm not sure how great he is, as a coverage guy, but I do like that he does have a little bit of ball production in his 2 years as a main starting player. Ronnie, you the man.
I'm telling you, it's a lot like the Singleton signing, and hopefully it pays out as such. The thing, though, it says less about Barton to me and more about Drew Sanders, because they truly don't value him, Chad, it seems like, as an inside guy. They want him playing edge or at least a hybrid role, and you have to start thinking, I'm not going to be too hyperbolic, but you have to start wondering if the Broncos erred on that pick by taking Drew Sanders there. He didn't look great when he was getting a lot of playing time last year, and they already brought back Jonas Griffith. Now they signed Barton. They already talked about moving him to edge. It's a position the Broncos are sorely need someone to step up at, and it doesn't seem like Sanders is going to be that guy, unfortunately.
Dude, I was really hoping the Broncos would get Cody Barton back in the 2019 draft. Like, I was bummed that he went to Seattle. I was hoping the Broncos would land him. So I'm actually excited about him. I dig his upside. When I talked to him back at the combine, I remember him being real, like a quiet confidence. You had the guys, Zach, like Devin White and Devin Bush, both coming out that year. When it was their time to talk, they got the big rock star podiums, right? And you had like every media guy there trying to get a question in, paying attention. Meanwhile, in that corner, you know what I'm talking about, the little corner with the circled desks, right? Cody's just chilling by himself, so I walked up and talked to him, and he was excited at the time about the prospect of possibly joining the Broncos because there were so many Utes. John Elway liked drafting and acquiring Utah Utes, I think, not just because of the proximity, but because they're all experienced to playing at altitude. But even now, you still got a couple of those same Utes in town. You got Garrett Bolles, you got Tim Patrick. So, RD, what's up? North of the 49th parallel. Appreciate you, big dog. A true state of being member of our community who says, I think Jarrett Stidham is horrible, but I'm proud they didn't do a retread, finally doing the hard work of building this up. Respect to Sean Payton. No more Band-Aids. Zach.
Yeah, you don't have to like him, but you have to palate him, and by him I mean Jarrett Stidham. Trust the process. I'm not trying to come off like Sam Hinkie or the 76ers, but this is all part of Sean Payton's master plan of giving the Broncos what you said there, RD, a much needed rebuild. No more band-aids or half measures, doing it right, tearing it down and building it back up. And that's what you have to do, and you have to employ someone like Jarrett Stidham in the process. So I am so pleased, Chad. We've dodged every major bullet, free agent bullet, trade market bullet with quarterbacks, and it does seem like they're going to go big or go home next month in the draft. It really is exciting.
I think it's also amen to that, and I think it's also very emblematic of the reality that it is a new regime in Denver,
Yeah,
and I don't just mean the
great.
coaching, but like just the overall vision and decision making process. Because again, under John Elway, man, every year was getting caught up in the reboot, not rebuild, kicking the can down the road. Meanwhile, that bullet hole that you've stretched a Band-Aid over, in fact, you like got, it's like an X because you're trying to cover as much. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And eventually, like, Sean Payton's going, yo, time for surgery on this bad boy. And yeah, we're going to be down for the count. We got to do the, we got to be put under. There's the anesthesia. Then there's the rehab and recovery. Like, it's going to take a little time, but we'll be better off in the long run than just like throwing some Neosporin and some Band-Aids on this bad boy. The time has come.
Yeah, that's right. It's time for surgery, Chad. It's time to do it the right way. It's like going to the dentist when you have a toothache. You can put it off, but it's only going to get worse, and you're going to end up at the dentist, as an end result. So get it over with, bite the bullet, and you'll be happier in the long run.
Man, tooth pain. Ugh.
Nothing like it. The worst.
The Duchess in the house. What's going on? Michaela Parker, Mount Rushmore. Here she is in our midst. Love you. Thank you so much for the support. She says, I have a feeling that we won't get our franchise quarterback in the draft this year. Minnesota's will move up for JJ McCarthy. What's the next move? Zach, what do you think's going on with Minnesota, and how does that affect the Broncos' hopes at quarterback?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Sorry, it's unfortunate they acquired more capital, because it does look like they're going to chase McCarthy, and they're in a much better position to go after McCarthy if that's who they want. But we don't know, Michaela, if McCarthy is who the Broncos want. We're all speculating that. Only Sean Payton knows. For all we know, it could be Bo Nix. For all we know, it could be Michael Penix or Rattler or, dare I say, Joe Milton. We just don't know yet. But even if the Broncos lose out on JJ, if they do settle for Bo Nix, he's not my plan A, but I do think they'd be okay, Chad. I do think Bo Nix could run the Sean Payton offense and at least give the Broncos a quarterback to grow with a little bit.
Look, I would be here for Bo Nix to the Broncos. At 12, our draft guys start getting real kind of up in arms about the value of it, which, I'm not discounting that. It's a thing. Maybe you can afford to trade back and still get your guys and whatnot. But just the prospect straight up of Bo Nix landing in Denver, I think the fit, arguably, of all the quarterbacks, it might be the best for Sean Payton as far as fit is concerned. I'm not talking about arm strength. I'm not talking about like the whole package, but of this class, which quarterbacks would be best suited to run the Sean Payton thing? You think back to the best, the tippity top good times of the New Orleans Saints, all those years with Drew Brees. And I mean, Bo Nix, it's hard to argue that he wouldn't be, just from a fit perspective, the best guy for Sean Payton. So if that's how it looks like to, on the outside looking in, maybe that's what they're thinking on the inside looking out, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe. And it's all about perspective, because, I wouldn't say Nix is my plan A, but McCarthy, if you boil down the whole class, he's not my plan A. I would go after Caleb Williams or Drake May if I was Sean Payton. So it's all about perspective as to who is realistic. And I heard one rumor, I don't know how credible, that the Vikings could be targeting May and not McCarthy in a trade up. So no one knows. Only the teams know, and the team's decision makers know who they want. And whoever the Broncos end up with, in Sean we trust.
Well, and we can say now, too, that for sure, I mean, not that it was ever that much in doubt, but with the Chicago Bears trading Justin Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers, yes, Russ has himself a little, backfield competition partner now in Pittsburgh. But the Bears are absolutely now 100%, no doubt about it, going quarterback. Then you got Washington. Howell's gone. They're going quarterback probably, right? Like, I'd be surprised. I'd probably be shocked even if Washington didn't. New England, they don't have a guy. So this might be one of those drafts, Zach, where it's 1, 2, 3. Arizona, they've got their guy already at 4. I think they'll keep trying to figure that out with Kyler Murray. Obviously, the Chargers have their guy in Justin Herbert. The Giants, what do you think the Giants do at 6, Zach?
That's who scares me. I don't think they're sold on Daniel Jones, and I think they acquired Drew Lock as a failsafe. If they can't get rid of Daniel Jones, they can move up to 4. Chad, I was listening to you talk about 1, 2, 3. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4 if a team moves up, and that's scary because the Vikings and the Giants both have more ammo and they're in a better position to move up. So I'm not going to sell the farm for one of these guys. I'm not going to sell 2 first-round picks and then some for JJ McCarthy.
Tennessee at 7. What do you think their overall outlook is? And then we'll grab Howie.
Seems like they're loading up for Will Levis. It seems like it's a new regime and they want to try to, make it work with him. They could have an eye on a quarterback next year. I don't know. I do think they're going to go non-quarterback there. It's the Giants and the Vikings that are the biggest worries for Denver right now.
Because Atlanta's off the board, really. I mean, you never say never, but paying all that money to Kirk Cousins, Atlanta, it's pretty safe to assume they're going to be using that pick to build around Kirk Cousins. So we'll see. Howie, bro, thank you again, big dog. Says, good evening, gents. I like Bo Nix, but is he a true first-round guy? And does he fit with a Sean Payton offense? #Buckham. I do think he's a great fit for Sean Payton, as I mentioned earlier. Like, it's hard to debate that there would be a better fit for what Payton likes to do. The short passing, the rhythm stuff, and he's a lot more athletic than people realize. He had a lot of rushing production in college at both his stops. But where you start getting into diminishing returns potentially with Bo Nix, Zach, is the arm talent isn't on the same level as some of the other top guys. Yeah. But, Drew Brees wasn't the biggest arm talent guy as far as like just blowing you away with a howitzer hanging off his right shoulder. It's not Mahomes-ish. It's not Elway-ish. Peyton Manning, though, he never had a rocket for an arm. It was all about what was happening between the ears, pre-snap, all the preparation, the study, and then just that, because of that, the phenomenal penchant and knack for throwing into the future and knowing where the defensive guys aren't going to be and where his guy is going to be. And that's kind of in that same vein, Zach, like where a Tom Brady type of guy, not the greatest athlete ever going to blow you away. What he brought to the table with all of his intangibles and tangibles combined just created a insanely productive, hard to beat quarterback. Same with Peyton Manning, same with Drew Brees. They don't all have to be Patrick Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech 2017.
Exactly. Yeah. I really can't disagree with anything there. And I just find it so arbitrary that it's kind of like when you turn 18 and can buy a pack of cigarettes. So the day before you turn 18, you're not allowed to, but somehow because of a number, you are. So a first round pick, if 32 and 33, you shouldn't draft a guy because he shouldn't be a first rounder. If he can play, he can play. It doesn't matter where you get him. And if Sean Payton thinks that Bo Nix can succeed in his system and that Bo Nix can be a franchise quarterback, I'm rolling with that pick. Again, not plan A, preferable, Chad, a trade down a little bit in the first and then still get Bo Nix. But if he's there and you like him, you got to take him.
You just don't dare risk looking that gift horse in the mouth. And if this does, Zach, end up being a draft where 4 quarterbacks are gone, let's say in the top 8, then yeah, Bo Nix becomes a first rounder. All things being equal, is he a first rounder? All it takes for a guy to be a first rounder is a team believing that he is. And now he is a first rounder. George, bro, thank you, big dog. He says, hey, guys, I'm of the mind that we could use Garrett Bolles in a trade up for a quarterback. What's your opinion? I mean, you could, but who's going to protect the blind side of you? I mean, who knows? You could end up with a Penix and he's no longer your blind side guy, but probably it's going to be a right-handed thrower. So who's going to be your blindside protector for that young guy that you're looking to build around? That would be the drawback.
Yeah, and also the fact that you're not going to net much for Garrett Bolles. And we talked about this on Thursday's show. Teams are going to want, in a trade-up, they're going to want a collection of first, second, and or thirds. And Bolles is definitely not worth a first or a second. I don't think you can get a third for him. I think a conditional third would be your best bet. So the Broncos there's more value to keeping Garrett Bolles, preferably on a reduced contract. And like you said, Chad, using him as a support system for a young quarterback. If you take a QB, you're still going to have to build around him, the line, the receivers, the running game, and so forth.
Plus, he's about to. I know he's only been in the league since 2017, Garrett Bolles, but he was old when he got drafted, right? He played 1 year at Utah, then becomes a first-round pick. My dude's about to turn 32 in May. 32-year-old left tackles that, he had the one really, really good year, but it also happened to coincide, Zach, and we don't believe in coincidence on this podcast, with the NFL's mandate, unwritten mandate, let's say, to ease up on the yellow laundry in the pandemic season. Just so happened that was great for Garrett Bolles, and the rest is history. But I mean, last year, Zach, last 2 years, he's been a solid, competent, capable starting left tackle in the NFL. But he's about to turn 32. He's not going to garner that much, George, as far as lubing the deal, the nice little cherry on top, maybe like a cherry on top type thing. But like no one's going, I was going to make this or I wasn't going to make this deal. But now that you offered this guy, like I can't refuse it. Garrett Bolles, let's go.
He would be the Shelby Harris throw-in, figuratively in a deal. He also has a monster cap number. And again, unless you're getting better than a third-round value for him, you're better off keeping him and hoping that you can work out a rework deal.
Now the Broncos' highest paid player, right, on the salary cap is Garrett Bolles. Crazy, the world we're living in right now. All right, let's see what's in the chat here, guys. What else is on your mind? Obviously, Zach, the biggest thing that Broncos fans are pining for is clarity in the draft as far as, what are we going to do at quarterback? Unfortunately, we still got to wait a minute to get any resolution on that front. The Duchess jumping back in. Love you, Michaela. Thank you, my friend. She says, I think Michael Penix is better than Nix for Sean Payton. So from a fit perspective, what she's saying is, hey, maybe no, it's not Nix, it's Penix. What do you think, Zach?
I wouldn't. Oh man, we talk about plan A, plan B. That would be like plan D or E. I like Michael Penix. I think more so than Bo Nix, I think Michael Penix is a second-round talent if we're, have to separate these guys into buckets. But Michaela, you're entitled to, scout whatever quarterback you think is the best for the Broncos. And if Sean Payton feels that Penix is the best for the Broncos, I have my reservations, not just the southpaw thing, but, some of the stuff we saw in the last game that he played, the injury history, other things as well. If Sean Payton thinks he's the guy, then I'll get on board.
I do agree, though, that he would be of the class. I mean, again, like on the surface, more of a fit, the cerebral demands of the Sean Payton scheme, and then just kind of stylistically, he would be one of the better fits potentially for the Sean Payton scheme. Zachary Miller jumping in with a super chat. Thank you, Zachary. Welcome. Connect with us on Twitter, big dog. Zachary says, John Matocha from Colorado Mines could be an interesting pickup. Look, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I know everything there is to know about Matocha. But, as a college free agent, that's probably what you're talking about here. Zachary is a guy who doesn't hear his name called in the draft, but ends up maybe potentially getting the opportunity to come in somewhere and compete. Hey, add a couple of guys, through the draft ranks anyway this year, the rookie ranks. But the odds of a college free agent, Zach, coming in and hitting, it's pretty rare. I mean, who's the last guy? Maybe Tony Romo, the last truly prolific undrafted quarterback. We have some late round guys or mid round guys, I should say. The Daks and even the Russes, and you can even throw Nick Foles in there as mid round guys that went on to produce. Tom Brady, of course, the unicorn of being a 6th round pick that becomes the greatest of all time. Just don't get your hopes up. But an interesting find. I'll look more into him. I'll look more into this John Matocha cat, my friend.
Yeah, John Matocha, as I'm pulling it up right here, quarterback for the Colorado School of the Mines. He was second team All-American. He was a captain, Harlan Hill Award finalist and runner-up. Like Chad was saying, a decent dart throw because you're not just looking for a QB on the 53 to be behind or compete with Stidham. You're looking for a quarterback to maybe fight Ben DiNucci, who the Broncos are bringing back for a second go-around for a spot on the practice squad. And bring in as many young quarterbacks as you want and filter through them, see who can play and keep the ones who can.
But he's also, Zach, listed at 5'11 and 180 for what it's worth. Like, it's going to be hard for that dude to catch on, because the shorter guys that have found a way to make it in the league traditionally, even going all the way back to like Flutie, Breeze, Russ, they brought something special and dynamic to the table that allowed them, or basically forced teams to look past, oh, he's not prototypical size. So I don't know. I'll do some study on this Matocha cat. We'll see. Taylor, what's going on, big dog? Appreciate you. So good to see you. Consistent, bro. That's all I can say. Consistently helping us keep the lights on week in, week out. Love you, big dog. He says, why did fans want us to trade for Justin Fields? I'm glad we didn't. Stidham is probably just as good. Denver needs to stick with the draft. Go Broncos, MHH. Hell, thank you, bro. Yeah, we were all here at MHH relieved when Fields got dealt to Pittsburgh. Also kind of interesting, Zach, from I don't know if you'd call it karma. That might be a little harsh, but from a destiny thing to see, hey, Russ, yeah, you got the 1-year deal. Broncos are paying your salary, though. I mean, Steelers only have, they're only invested in you about $1 million. You're going to have to probably sing for your supper. Like, this is the first time potentially, Zach, in his now going into year 13, his 13th year, that Wilson will have to compete for a starting job. Like, I think he will have to compete. He'll start as the one guy, taking the first team reps in camp and all that stuff, but he'll have to beat out Justin Fields. Will he?
I think he will to start. That's a really interesting thought. I hadn't considered that angle. It's a great move from the Steelers' point of view, what they've done with their quarterback situation, moving on from Kenny Pickett, not so softly, bringing in a veteran, then bringing in a younger guy with upside. I love what they've done, but Fields never made sense for the Broncos. And I, for one, am so glad we can put all of that talk to bed. Even as a backup, he's not what Sean Payton wants in a quarterback. And you don't want to give up a draft pick for a Taysom Hill. He's Russ 2.0, more athletic, a way worse thrower of the football, a turnover-prone quarterback that would drive Sean Payton crazy. I just think that you have a guy in Jarrett Stidham. You don't need Fields or anybody else. Just draft your quarterback. I did read, though, Chad, recently that the Chicago was talking about a trade with other teams, and Fields kind of put the kibosh on those talks, and he only wanted to go to Pittsburgh. I do wonder if Denver was one of those teams that he didn't want to go to.
Indeed. All we can say is, thank goodness, not our problem. Whether it's Fields or whether it's the prospect of Russ having to compete for a starting job, not our problem anymore. Gary in the house, multiple Mount Rushmore superstars in the chat tonight. Love it. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate you, big dog. He says, intentionally or BPA, I think it will be Bo Nix. Not a great arm, but good processing. Go Broncos. Yes, I'm glad you brought up the P word there, because, Sean Payton, he's talked a lot about that this offseason in terms of, hey, what are you looking for? He needs that processor. He needs a guy who can check the boxes in terms of, the between the ears stuff. Again, Drew Brees, strong enough arm, but not no one's, when they're talking about Drew Brees, going, yo, remember that freaking arm of his? Like, no one's getting blown away. Same with Peyton Manning. It was more about the intangible stuff with those guys, and so that's what Sean Payton is after. And Bo Nix, I do agree with you, fits more of that processor kind of motif.
Not to mention, again, Bo Nix's center at Oregon was Alex Forsyth, who could start for the Broncos in 2024. The connections are there. And you know what, Chad? We haven't covered Sean Payton for long, but one of the things that I learned about him is that he doesn't give a damn what you think, what I think, what anyone in the media thinks. If he believes that Bo Nix is the guy for the Broncos, he's not going to care about the criticism or the blowback, that he should have traded up for JJ or traded back and still taken Nix or whoever. If he thinks he's the guy, he's going to take Nix, and he's not going to care what anybody thinks about it.
And you know what? If Bo Nix or someone else, it doesn't matter who. If the Broncos make a first round, take a quarterback in the first round this year, Broncos country. I mean, think about it. When's the last time? Paxton Lynch, 2016. I mean, we're coming up on a decade since a first round quarterback. Before that, Tim Tebow in 2010. Before that, Jay Cutler, 2006. Before that, you had to go all the way back to Maddox in the 90s. I think Broncos fans, regardless of who it is, will welcome a first-round drafted quarterback with open arms. Eric Holt, what's going on, big dog? Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Says, I know this isn't a popular fix for inside linebacker, but move Baron Browning back inside. And I know Zach isn't going to like this, but stay away from Bo Nix. Watch his tape at Auburn and wait till 2025 for Sanders. All right, first things first, Zach. He mentioned you by name. Let's start with the Bo Nix thing, then we'll talk about Barron.
Listen, I don't have much of a dog in this fight. Bo Nix is my plan B or C. Drake May would be my preference, and then JJ probably my plan B. But I do like Bo Nix. I don't think he's the best quarterback necessarily in this draft by talent alone. But like Chad was talking about, that's the most important thing. He might be the best fit for a Sean Payton system. That's all we should really care about is who can play for Sean Payton. If he's not the guy, he's not the guy. But it's not. I'm not dying on that hill for Bo Nix. Put it that way.
Right. And you know what? I wouldn't hate the idea of Baron Browning moving back to the inside, but it's not going to happen. I mean, I'd be surprised. I'll put it that way. Just because he is now the most complete edge rusher that they have.
They don't have anyone else either.
The closest thing to closest thing to being a thing that they have, if they were stacked to the gills, like if it was, Ware, Miller, Barrett, and Browning, then yeah, you could afford to move my dog back to inside. But if you do that now, Zach, you're hanging your hat completely on Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito, both of whom, took some steps forward last year. I mean, I think you got to you'd have to maybe make an argument that Cooper took steps forward. I think he's kind of been at that same level as he's been at the past couple of seasons, but Benito definitely turned a little bit of a corner in terms of pass rush production. Still leaves much to be desired, though, as a complete package, especially against the run. Howie, bro, says, Bo Nix good enough to be at least a Brock Purdy, all things considered, #Buckham. I think he could be, yes. My answer to that is yes. Now, some of our draft guys would maybe disagree with me. I don't know about you, though, Zach.
It comes down to the system. I was reading what our Butler was saying in the comments about fitting with Sean Payton. It comes down to the system. If you take Brock Purdy out of the Shanahan system, I like Brock Purdy and all. I think he can still play in the NFL, but he's not going to be nearly as good as what we've seen so far. It's about coaching. It's not just a cliche. That's why if Sean Payton thinks that Bo Nix can fit his system the best, better than McCarthy or Penix or whoever, that's going to be the guy, and we have to kind of just support that move.
Wait a minute. We've got a conversation going on in the chat about Taylor guitars. I'm going to have to circle back on this here String Guy's getting it going. At the end, if we have time, I'm going to have to weigh in on this. The Ronk, we got Mike in the house. So good to see you tonight, big dog. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for the support as always, my friend. David Vasquez, I just want to grab this real quick because David's a regular. Ronk, want to hear some of your thoughts and questions tonight too, big dog. Vasquez says, are the Broncos moving up in the draft? Are they doing it? Zach, we haven't really heard any kind of other than, just speculation on if they were to do it, who would they be after type thing. There's not really been anything that's come to light on the Broncos actually taking steps to do so. I don't think they're going to now. I wouldn't be against it. I would not criticize it. I mean, I've said on the show more than once, like if you're lacking the quarterback, you got to do whatever it takes to get your quarterback. I wouldn't hate it, but you look at it from a pragmatist perspective, especially in light of Minnesota loading up, with even more capital to maneuver. The Broncos this year, Zach, first of all, you're coming off 2 years, back-to-back years of giving up ridiculous draft capital for a couple of trades. And then, Zach, you don't have a second-round pick this year, which kind of handicaps them a little bit in terms of the firepower necessary to not only, Zach, move up and get a teams, compete with other teams who also may be looking to move up, but do you still have enough picks and whatnot to continue bolstering your roster after you make that trade up?
I promise y'all, if I knew If I could read into the future and see the answer, I would tell you, but I don't know. I do think, though, they're going to try their damnedest to move up. They're going to make a lot of phone calls and see what package they can put together. Sean Payton, if he had it his way solely, would want to move up and be aggressive and mortgage the future. It's not really his franchise. He's kind of just going to be here for a little bit, then move on. George Payton would rather be conservative. I think they're going to balance each other out, Chad, in the end, not give up PS2 or 4 first-round picks, but they're going to try. If they really love someone like McCarthy, they are going to try really hard to get their guy.
John Roybal jumping in on Super Chat. That's a newer name. So welcome, John. Connect with us on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, because we like to keep in touch with the key crucial members of our community. And we always look to tag our Super Chat Superstar supporters on X every single night after every stream as just kind of a shout out and a thank you. So John, if you're on X, take care of that. He says, I would like to bring up the selfish lack of team cohesion. Whoever the Broncos might take, a quarterback isn't it safe to say we need to have a go to war mentality. So regardless of who the Broncos draft, we need to have, Zach, a go to war mentality. We need that Derek Wolfe, gene memories that have been repressed only through some kind of like trauma or psychotropic experience. Do I remember that I was a Viking once and I went to war and now I channel that into my on. If you guys are wondering what the heck I'm talking about, Derek Wolfe, Joe Rogan, check it out. But what's your answer for John here?
I mean, if you're looking for a literal player that represents that, I think the Brandon Jones signing could come close. That he has that dog mentality, like a TJ Ward, hard hitter. You're going to like Brandon Jones. But, John, I think the bigger message that Sean Payton is sending is that we'll do anything it takes to make this team a consistent winner, to make them part of the NFL's elite once again. You released a player like Russell Wilson. You released a player like Justin Simmons. Even as a cap-conscious move, you're cutting high-priced talent because you want to strive to be better. It also sends the message, John, that if you're not good enough, no matter who you are, your name could be Russell Wilson or, John Doe, you're going to get replaced. And that's how it should be. You either perform or you're out the door. It's an old school mentality that Sean Payton got from Bill Parcells that the Broncos have needed for years, Chad.
Well said, but I don't disagree with you, my friend, that the Broncos, they need to cultivate that dog mentality. Sean Payton, I think, it starts at the top, and Sean Payton brings that dog mentality to the table way more than any previous head coach the Broncos have had in recent canon. And so I do think a team takes on its kind of emotional complexion of its coach. And Sean Payton is an intense cat, dude. Like listening to Drew Brees, for example. I mean, we saw him year one, right? There were a few incidents, this and that, sideline stuff, dressing down Russ in front of everybody, all this. He's intense, yelling at officials, all that stuff. Drew Brees making the rounds at the combine, or was it the Super Bowl? It was the Super Bowl, actually. When I remember on one of these interviews, Zach, I did a transcribe because he said something noteworthy about, hey, I knew it wasn't really going to work out with Russ and Sean Payton. But in that same sit down, I want to say it was NBC Sports, he talked about how Sean Payton is just like a crazy, insane person on game day, like out of his mind, intensity, all that stuff. So yeah, find players that continue to kind of match that.
Yeah, find players that are insane. That's a key to success for Sean Payton, apparently.
No doubt about it. Okay. We got there we go. Mike Edel in the house. What is going on, big dog? Much love and respect. Another Mount Rushmore superstar in the house, Mike Edel. Hey, Chad, Zach, and Scott. I am really wondering about Sean Payton's comments about knowing more about QBs than others. Is he feeling if he can't pick in the top 3 that there is no one left worth doing it? Go MHH. No, I don't think that's what he's saying. What he's saying is, if I take it, doesn't matter where I take a quarterback. I think more what he's saying here, Mike, is I don't necessarily need, because I know quarterbacks and I don't need to panic and trade up to get, one of the top 2 or 3 guys. Just know whatever quarterback I take, it's going to be all right.
You know, the annoying kid that used to say, like, la, 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 anything that you can do, I can do better. That's what Sean Payton is saying here. Whatever quarterback you take, I'm going to take one and he's going to be better under my watch. So that's a kind of an interesting way to look at those comments, Mike, but I'm with Chad there. It's his ego talking 100%.
Mike says, also, I'm wondering if the Chargers are going to trade Herbert. I don't see any world in which that happens, my friend. I understand why it comes up as a thought because, hey, new head coach, that head coach, Jim Harbaugh, happened to coach and recruit one of the top, 3 or 4 signal callers in this draft class. Could the Chargers look to trade Herbert, kind of like a, Josh McDaniels thing, trading a guy, you already got a good guy, coming in and trade him so you can get your guy, possibly downgrading along the way. That's definitely what McDaniels did, but I understand why you might think that. But Herbert, different animal. He's a great player. Plus, is it like $100 million dead on the Chargers salary cap if they were to move on from him? They couldn't trade him even if they wanted to, really. I mean, they couldn't afford to.
Yeah, if Jim Harbaugh, it's kind of like Sean Payton coming in last year. He's going to try to give it a go with Justin Herbert, and make lemonade with him. But yeah, they're not trading him, not this year anyway.
No, I mean, that's the thing, especially, as the NFL marches on, the league does in many ways, learn from mistakes that are made by different teams and coaches along the way. And I think, what Josh McDaniels did to kind of blow things up in Denver was a big wake-up call for a lot of teams. I know it's a long time ago now relative to NFL history. I mean, what are we talking here? Like 15 years ago? Really? Dang, I'm old. Howie, jumping in again. This year feels like whatever or whoever the Broncos are going for is being kept under a tight lid, different from years past. Well, Payton, Sean Payton, that is, he's very, he's very poker about it. He's like very in the Patriots realm of football espionage, like no leaks, no telling you what I'm going to do. Like he'll talk a little bit, but he's like one of the greatest at just like shooting off at the mouth without saying a dadgum thing. Now, George Payton, his GM compliment, Zach, he tries to do a good job. Like he knows when he gets into territory that I'm not going to talk about XYZ, but he can be baited into maybe revealing things that he wouldn't otherwise have revealed. But Sean Payton overall, as the last guy, to turn the lights off every night at Broncos HQ, I think he keeps a pretty tight lid on what's going on.
As a writer and a podcaster, I don't like what the Broncos are doing. Much different than the Elway years where the leaks were very prevalent, Chad. But as a football fan, I do like what they're doing. I would want my coach and GM to lock things down and be all quiet and be kind of like the North Korea of the NFL, where you never know the next move and you're kind of always left in mystery.
BK, what's up, big dog? Thank you for the super. He says, unless we find another DE, defensive end,
yeah,
Brandon Jones is going to be our sack leader. LOL. I mean, Zach Allen, what did he finish with last year? Zach, was it 6, 5.5, something like that? I think it was Nick Bonito led the team, right, with 7.5. So I get that you're being a little hyperbolic here, my friend, but yeah, that's the bummer about the situation the Broncos find themselves in this year is they need a quarterback, and that has to take precedence, but they really could use a Batman-style edge rusher, really help. But they might have to just kick that can down the road one more year. I mean, not to say they won't draft one, but like taking a blue chipper, not sure they're going to have they're not going to be able to do that.
Wouldn't surprise me with Vance Joseph if Brandon Jones is the Broncos' leading sacker. But no, on a serious note, you guys are really going to like the player after looking into him. He really can do it all in the back end. He can cover, he can hit, he can rush the passer. Really a nice signing by Denver.
We are at 48 minutes, guys, so any burning topics, get them in the chat. And by the way, with me being gone that couple of weeks I was gone, it just so happened to be during the turnover from February to March. We didn't do the jersey raffle. We're going to be doing the jersey raffle for the month of February tomorrow night, so make sure you're in the house for that. John jumping in again. Thank you, my friend. Says, talking about the mentality thing. He says, I'm referring to the mentality like the Broncos had during the revenge tour. that cohesion was phenomenal. Too many individuals on our team lately. Yeah, I think that that definitely has been a thing. But Sean Payton, he inherits a team. He goes through a year kind of figuring out what's what, who's what. Some of those problem children are already gone, like Russ.
3.
He exactly. And, Russ was one of those guys where it was watch what I do, not so much what I say to deduce that he's definitely a me guy. He does it in a very politically savvy way, but Russ, definitely a me guy. Jerry Jeudy, he's a receiver. That alone makes him a me guy, Zach. But then you add the additional stuff. He's definitely a me guy. Who's the third guy?
Brandon McManus, who, as for a kicker and the NFLPA rep, he was a pain in the Broncos' ass. Do not get it twisted. Sean Payton has given all of them the pink slip, all 3, within, a year and a half's time now. So he's cleaning up the culture in that sense. If you thought the Broncos were, I before team, Sean Payton is undoing that. That should give you hope in a sense.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, John, that the Broncos need that mentality, but I think they hired a coach that's you give him the time he needs to culturally build that mentality, and you're going to be happy with how it shakes out. There'll be some pain, some growing pains along the way, but just bear down and hang in there. Friendly Giant jumping in. Good to see you, my friend. We're about out of time. He says, if your plan A is outbidding the Vikings for J.J. McCarthy, do you think Surtain fetches you more value than their, say, number 11 overall pick and 23 overall pick, Zach?
More value than the 11 and the 23. I mean, that's 2 first-round picks. I do think Surtain is worth more than 2 first-round picks in a vacuum. But then it would deter. I think the team that would be acquiring that would value who would think that which team would have the higher draft position in 2025. That would be close. I just don't know. You move up for Drake May or Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, then trading PS2 as part of that deal makes sense. I think, though, Chad, a large part of Denver would riot if you move PS2 for JJ McCarthy. As much as I love McCarthy, I don't think you trade PS2 for him and give up that ghost.
In the realm of what we're talking about in your specific example here, Friendly Giant, I'm not sure that he does because I don't know. I mean, that's a hard question for me to answer, to be perfectly honest with you, Zach. Like, that's a tough one just because, if we were having this conversation a year ago, I would probably, like, off the cuff say, yeah, good chance. But he had that decent year, not a great year. Like, the accolades he got, Surtain, for 2023 were definitely based on reputation, not production. So that, you only get about a year or so grace period where if you don't reset, like if he doesn't come back to all pro form next season, then the accolades start skipping you. And I think he will. Like, I think it was just kind of a little bit of a weird season, the way that VJ came in and kind of took some time to figure out what he was going to do, running so much man initially and then going to so much zone. And like, it was just kind of a weird transition, but he eventually kind of got on his feet. I expect bigger things from Surtain moving forward, but do other teams view it that way? I don't know.
Exactly. And, I was actually stuttering. It was a great question, really threw me for a loop. I was stuttering and hemming and hawing how to answer that. What I appreciate about Scott, he's such a pragmatic thinker and he breaks things down in a way that's easy to understand. And this is the best way to put it. He says, would you take 11 and 23 for a PS2? And if I was a team, I wouldn't surrender 11 and 23 for PS2. The only player that I would surrender 2 first-round picks in the same year would be a quarterback. And again, as great as PS2 is, A, he's not a quarterback, and B, he's coming off, quote-unquote, a down season. So the Vikings still have the upper hand. I truly feel that way.
Lawrence jumping in. Bro, what's going on, big dog? On Facebook says, my next jersey will be a blank name where I'll put Velcro next to the numbers and names. I know. I really feel bad because for a lot of fans, who have been the A-list players whose jerseys, people want to get. Russ, everyone wants to have their quarterback, especially, Russ gets here, Zach. He's a 9-time Pro Bowler entering year 11. Everyone's going to load up on Russ jerseys. Justin Simmons jerseys were ubiquitous in the immediate aftermath of 2020. draft. Jerry Jeudy jerseys were all over the place, and now you're kind of going, so I totally get it. Ronk, bro, love you, big dog. Thank you so much. I don't know what we'd do without you, my friend. Before we get out of here, one last thing real quick, Zach.
Yeah.
I got to weigh in on this, all right? I, too, am not a fan, William, on Taylor guitars. A little too high-endy, bright. That's a good way to put it. Too bright. I'm a J45 guy and a Guild guy. Koas, I'm not into 12-string for what it's worth, but, hey, to each Guild collector. One day, William, I'll have to show you my my Guild guitar collection. Mostly vintage Guild, American solid body, electric guitars, but I just got a big old acoustic that's actually at the luthiers right now. So when that comes out, when I get that back, I'll show you what's up. But we got a few messages, guys, and we got a dip.
I can't speak to that, but I can speak to jersey collecting, Chad. And there's a golden rule you have to follow. Don't buy a current player, buy a legacy player. So buy a John Elway or buy a Champ Bailey or buy a Steve Atwater. Don't buy a PS2 or a Simmons, like Chad said. But that's going to do it for tonight's show. Another tremendous episode of the MHH podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. And if you're listening on Apple Podcast, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Hey, a mile high salute and a shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters throwing down tonight, helping us keep the lights on. Got to start with the Duchess, Michaela Parker. We love you. Gary Palmer, love you, big dog. Mike Edel, much love. Rock Chalk, much love. Ronnie Ray, RD, Howie on Facebook, George, Zachary Miller, Taylor Christensen, so consistent. Eric Holt. We got the Ronk. We've got John Roybal throwing down a couple supers. We got BK throwing down, Friendly Giant, Lawrence Rivera. Love each and every one of you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. You know the time. We'll be ready to rock and roll, and we're doing the raffle. So we'll see you then.
Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.